Hey YouTube, Paul here with Patek. Today we're going to take a look at some Yongnuo manual radio triggers. This isn't the first time I've done a video on Yongnuo radio triggers, but I've had a lot of questions in the comments of my previous videos and a lot of questions about the RL600-B high-speed sync, so I thought I'd kill 7 birds with one stone, as it were. And so I'm going to cover off the YN605Ns, the 603s. I'm going to take a look at RL600-B, the TR-A6 for doing high-speed sync with the RL600-B, and the trigger that comes with the RL600-B, and I'm also going to tie that into how to use the 605s or the 603s to trigger the RL600-B. So it's going to be a little bit longer video, but I think you're going to find it quite useful. I'm going to try to address as many concerns as I can for anybody that's new to these triggers or the RL600-B or high-speed sync. So let's get to it. Okay, boys and girls, Flashpoint RL600-B, Flashpoint Studio 300 R2. The purpose of this video, I've been getting a lot of inquiries about Yongnuo radio triggers, especially the 605s. So I thought that I would revisit one of my older videos, and it seems like a lot of the questions I'm getting are really pretty basic. How do I get them to work with my camera? How do I get them to fire the shutter? How do I get them to trigger the flash? So I thought I'd just give you sort of a rundown of my setup and how I use this. So this is a Yongnuo 560TX. This is a TR-A6. This is a Jinbei trigger that actually fires the RL600-B. This is the little trigger that comes with the RL600-B, but unfortunately this little guy doesn't do high-speed sync. So if you want to do high-speed sync, you need to use this combination here. This goes on the camera, and then you can have this just in your hand, and you can use it to raise or lower the levels for the 600-B. Now the only reason I've introduced this guy here is because it came with a sync cable like what you see here. And so I just move this guy out of the way. And if you want to use your RF605s to fire your RL600-B, you can plug it in like so. You can then take the other end of this cable. It's kind of a funny looking end, and that's what this port is for here. If I plug this on here like so and turn this on, okay, and then I'm going to just move these up out of the way. Get us a bit of room to work here, put my camera in place, and I can take this guy and plug it in like so, and I can actually have this sitting on top of my camera, and I just bring this up nice and high for you so you can see the settings. All the dip switches are down. I'm on channel 1 and group A, and so all of the settings for the 605s, they're all the same. Channel 1 group A, channel 1 group A, all the same. Very straightforward stuff. Now, if memory serves me correctly, okay, now you can't see that, so let me put this down so you can see the RL600-B flashing. Okay, and so that's one way to use an RL605N to fire your RL600-B. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that you can't use the RF605N to raise or lower the power on this guy. However, you can use the little trigger that comes with the RL600-B if you just hold the button down, and if I tip this up for you again and you press the buttons here, you can see the power levels are going up or they're going down. And so that's pretty much how I use this. I'll have this on a Century stand. I just have this hanging off because real estate photography is pretty a calm environment. You can take your time and take as much time as you want on the shot. I've been doing a little bit of kitchen photography. I'm getting ready to sell my house. but I digress. So that's the basic setup that you can use if you want to use 605Ns to trigger your RL600-B. So the next variation on a theme that I'm going to show you is you can take the 603s and plug them in using the exact same cable, and you can fire your 600B using the 603s, and I've got the 605 still mounted on top of the camera. You can also fire with the 605s. Very straightforward stuff. You could alternatively go this route, have the 603 here, the other 603 here, and use one of the 605s to fire the setup. We could even introduce another 603 and do it that way. So now basically I'm using this one to fire the RL600B and the camera at the same time. So essentially what's happening is this guy here is communicating with this guy to fire the camera remotely, and this guy here is communicating with this guy here to fire the RL600B. Very straightforward, very easy to set up, and that's what I love about this system. It's just so easy to use and effortless. Now another thing that we could do alternatively is, and maybe I'll just show you this one here. This is the 560TX, which gives you total control here, manual control, if you're using YN560 speed lights, but you can't control anything on this light with this device. It's only a triggering mechanism. So if I put this on top like so, and then grab one of these triggers, that gives you even another way to fire your RL600B. Just take a second and we'll go back to our 605s, and you can see that I have the triggers set on TRX mode. All the dip switches are down. I'm on channel 1 group A, and you can switch your modes by pressing this button. So there's TX, TRX, and this one just takes you back and forth. Channels, I believe there's 16 in total here. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 16 different channels. So can't see any possible scenario where you would have 16 different speed lights, but who knows, maybe Joe McDally. But for myself, this is pretty much how I use it. Channel 1, Group A, TRX mode, very straightforward. And these triggers are essentially for manual control only of your speed lights. So these units here do not do TTL, in case anybody is wondering. And neither do the 603s. All of this kit here is for manual control only. So now let's get really radical for a second, and let's say that we want to shoot high-speed sync using the RL600B and the triggers that we have here. So really what we need to do is unplug this and move the Yongnuo stuff right out of the picture. Move everything to the side here, like so. And if you want to shoot high-speed sync, let's turn the camera on. Then we have to bring our TR-A6 into the fold. Tighten it down. There's the Jinbei logo when you turn it on, so you can see the settings I have. 0, 0, all the dip switches are down, and you can see the little H there indicating that I'm in high-speed sync mode. But even with this setup, I can't use this controller to raise or lower the levels on the RL600B. I have to do that here with this guy. Press the button down until the light comes on, and then it's synced to the RL600B, and then you can raise or lower the levels. And you're only going to get high-speed sync from 1/16th power and above. And I think I mentioned that in my first video. So now we lay this guy down here, and I put the camera into manual mode, and let's take our shutter to think the sync speed on the Nikon D200 is 2/50th of a second, and I'm not too worried about the outcome here. Looks like I was doing some bracketed exposures the other day, and so basically all I'm showing you is this guy is firing this guy at a 2/50th of a second. But now what we're going to do is let's take this up to 5,000ths of a second. Oh. Okay, and there you can see it fired. There's really not much to see here. I'm just taking a shot of the backdrop here on the bench, but you can see 110% that it is working in high-speed sync, and that's really all there is to it. If you're wondering how to set up the TR-A6, I have a previous video that I did, and I actually reached out to Jinbei and got some excellent instructions from them, which will show you, and you can copy it off of that video and use it to set up your own TR-A6 if you want. And typically when I'm doing high-speed sync out in the field, I just keep this in my pocket and then make adjustments to the little Flashpoint trigger if I want to raise or lower the settings. Either that, or I just come to the back and raise or lower the settings using the plus or minus buttons like that. Okay, so now let's step back for a second and keep it really simple for somebody who's new to photography. They got a brand new camera like this D200 here, although keep in mind this thing is probably 10 or 15 years old now. And let's say that you've purchased a couple of 605s here and you want to fire your camera remotely. So this is the way that it would work. You take one of your 605 triggers like so, put it on top. Just make sure that your dip switches are matching on the two triggers. So they're both on channel 1, they're both group A, TRX mode, all the dip switches are down. Now with the Yongnuo triggers, you will get this fancy cable here. And if you happen to be using a camera like this D3300 here, you will find that you will need another cable that has a little bit different fitting than this one for my Nikon D200. Take this cable like so, you pop it in like this. I very seldom tighten the threads up. I just take the lead up, plug it into the side of the RL605. Okay. I'm in manual mode, and you should be able to, you can hear the lens, so you're pressing the button here, it's adjusting the focus, and it fires the camera, and that's really all there is to it. Now, a variation on this theme, so now let's get really radical here, and we'll introduce a 563 speedlight, which has the radio trigger built in. You'll notice that all of the dip switches are in the down position, channel 1 here. So I'll put this down like so that you can see it. Then you can use any of these triggers. Notice the blue light comes on to show everything that's in sync, and bang. So now what I'm doing is I'm firing the shutter on the camera, I'm firing the manual speed light as well, and again it's all manual. If you want to change the power levels on this flash here, you've got to do it here. However, you could do this, take this guy off, plug this guy in like so, like that, and now let's see, this is, so I have this speed light set to C, so that should be my C mode there. I'm at 1/64th power here, and I should be able to, so as you can see I'm controlling the light output on these speed lights, and this 560TX is a phenomenal system if you want to use 2 or 3 or 4 speed lights you know, for a 3-light setup or a 2-light setup or a 1-light setup, whatever you want. I absolutely love these things. They're super cheap. They're about 75 bucks to buy. The 563 speed lights, very straightforward. You can see my settings very clearly there on the speed light. I'm in the RX mode. I'm in manual 16th power. You can see the dip switches. So nothing really complex about this setup, and that's the beauty of shooting in manual mode. It's very straightforward, so that if you get a setup you like and you have a certain settings, and you know, you can use them again over and over and over again. Okay, so now we're going to get super radical here for a second, and we're going to use the 603 or the 605, doesn't matter, and we're going to fire all 3 speed lights. And now, because I have this one set to channel 1, this one set to channel, or sorry, group 1, group 2, and group 3, I can vary the settings. So here I got a 64th, here I've got 128th, and here I have a 16th. So it doesn't get any easier than that, and you control all of these speed lights from the 560T. It's a great setup. I'll just show you here, firing it with the 605 or, you know, with the 603. It's a very versatile setup, and especially for someone that's new to photography or is just looking for a very simplistic system. Now let's take it one step further. Okay, so here is a YN603-EX. This speed light is designed for TTL, so you'll notice that if I try to fire this speed light using this trigger, it's not going to work because the radio trigger is not built in to this speed light. This speed light is designed to sit on top of your camera and fire directly off of the hot shoe on your camera. So I just wanted to sort of mention that. That's the difference between the 560 series and some of the other speed lights like the 568, and there's others from Yongnuo. So this setup here, all of what you see on the table here is manual only, has nothing to do with TTL. Okay, the next thing we should probably do is set up one of these triggers to set the dip switches. And the way you would do that on the 603s is, if you notice here, in between the 2 batteries, you can see the 4 dip switches there, and it's really just a matter of getting, you know, the tip of a pen or something and making sure that your dip switches are set the same on your speed lights and on both of your triggers that you're using. So it's really no more complex than that. Now on the 605s it's a little different. If you can see here, when I press the channel button, when I go to 2, the dip switches change. 3, they change again. 4, and you just notice that every time I press that channel button, it's setting a different configuration of dip switches. So you just want to make sure that your triggers that you're using are both on the same channel. So in this case, I'm just going to go right, cycle through the whole gambit here, and come back to 1. So I've got both of my triggers, my RL605s, they're matching here. Well, at least they were. Just buzz through this again for you. And back to 1. So now I've got both of them set exactly the same. And that's really all there is to setting the dip switches on the RF605s. If you're still having troubles with how to set your radio triggers up, Yongnuo comes with the 605, 603s. 603 manual is a little bit more convoluted. The 605 manual is very straightforward. It gives you great information on how to set up the triggers to get them to work properly. So, you know, I used to have a saying when I was teaching auto mechanics, and that is RYFM, read your manual. And so basically, if you read through this manual, I think you find it's very straightforward to set up any of these triggers to get them to do what you need them to do. Okay, so that was a little bit longer video. Sorry for the pain of having to wade through a lengthy video. You may have noticed I've used a new template on this video, and so I thought I'd just throw this out there that anybody that might be interested in the template, I'm happy to send you the PSD file. As a matter of fact, for any of my videos, the templates that I use I'm happy to send them out free to anybody. I'll send you the PSD file. You can chop it and clip it and use it if you're just getting started with your YouTube channel. So that's free to you. And I just wanted to mention also that none of the gear that I used in this video, it was all paid for by me. I've been using it for 2 or 3 years now, so nothing was sent to me. And it would really help me out if you click the subscribe button in the bottom left-hand corner of the video. I've used the PathTech Photography and Gear Reviews. I've put a little logo there, a link that you can, just makes it easier for you to subscribe by clicking on the button. And that's it for this one. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.